The first concerns my wife's health. About 15 years ago, she succumbed to a severe form of breast cancer, had a double mastectomy, and just about everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It seems like such a small thing to talk about it, but she took allergic reactions to all the anti-nauseants, which meant that she was so sick, so ready to retch, that after another round of chemo, for example, I couldn't sleep in the same bed because if I rolled over, she'd start to retch. The motion was already too much. I slept on the floor. So for months, I did the shopping and the cleaning and looking after the kids and so on. And it wasn't at all that it was hard. We took vows for better, for worse, in sickness as in health, till death separates us. It wasn't that I resented it. It wasn't that in the slightest, partly because I come from a family where my father exhibited Christian grace in looking after my mother during her 9 years of Alzheimer's. Never once complaining. And I inherited that heritage. But there was an emotional depletion to it all. It wasn't just the hours or the energy levels, it was the emotional depletion that I probably didn't recognize fully until some months later. But there were some moments of spectacular grace in all of that too. I teach at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, and at any given time I'm carrying a lot of PhD students. The seminary helped me rearrange my classes so that on the weeks after the next chemo, Joy couldn't be left alone. And so we arranged for somebody to come in the morning. All my classes and everything were put in the morning. And I was home by the afternoon. We made sure she was covered. And then I began to notice that normally PhD students hand in the next chapter of their dissertation. It's never predictable, but it comes in when it comes in. And I had about 8 students at that time, and for weeks and then months, until finally 6 or 8 months went by, and I didn't get a single chapter in from any PhD student. And that just alleviated the pressures on me, no end. And then at the end of that time, I mentioned to one of my graduate assistants that this was the case. And I said it's a remarkable coincidence that in the Lord's sovereign timing of things, I was left free. And he smiled. He said, "I'm not supposed to tell you this," he said, "but your students took a vow that we would not hand in any work asking you to correct it until it was clear what was going to happen to your wife, and we have kept our vow." And of course, for me, that was a moment of immense grace. Some of those students were delaying their PhD by a whole year. And of course, I wouldn't have experienced any of that if it hadn't been for my wife's illness.